Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and Ninja Spinner has been out in Japan for around a month at this point. So it's been a good amount of time. So we've been able to see how the set has developed in Japan. Honestly, I haven't really been taking too much of a look at this before today and planning for this video because this released in Japan at the same time, Perfect Order, as well as, of course, Rotation released internationally. So I've been taking a look at a lot of post-rotation stuff, but, Perfect Order slash Unicus Zero stuff. However, we also, are seeing Ninja Spinner in Japan, which is, if you're not familiar, it says M4 is the fourth expansion of the Mega era, or I guess fourth and main expansion if we look at. There's Mega Evolution, Phantasmal Flames, and Perfect Order, and then it will be Chaos Rising, which is essentially Ninja Spinner. I think there's a few differences. Like, I guess the card which isn't in this video, which I'm pretty sure is in the international set, which is Mega Slowbro EX. This has been seeing some play in Japan, not an absolute ton, but we see that this card does for 3 Psychic. Obviously, it's a Mega here. It does 180, and then if it's damage next turn, it does 120 to your opponent's active, or places damage counters there. So that's a card. It's actually not the most interesting or powerful card. However, the set focuses on a handful of things, like, theming wise, like highlighting the set. Like, for example, Phantasmal Flames was focused around Charizard and Gengar, the megas there, kind of. Obviously, those weren't necessarily the best cards in the set, though that set was pretty weak. But Chaos Rising slash Ninja Spinner, the Ninja Spinner thing is going to be Mega Greninja EX, which we'll actually talk about in this video. And then there also is the Mega Floette EX, which is a pretty interesting card, I guess, but we're not actually going to be talking about that really in this video. And we also have some more special energies, which we'll be talking about some of those in this video as well. But I have the top 10 most played cards here. The way I did this was I went through, the different cards here, just saw which ones were in the most deck lists, and also removed the previous evolutions, except for one of them, which will be clear as to why I have that one included. But anyways, let's just hop right in and talk about these cards. The first one here is, and this is, going from least to most plays. This card isn't played a lot, but it's played a little. It's this Deoxys, which for 3 Psychic, it does 120, which is not very good, even on a basic. I mean, I guess it's not the worst, but it's not very good. Then for 5 energy, the 2 extras don't need to be Psychic, but they probably will be, right? And then this card here does 120 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon, as well as 120 to their active. This is kind of like Willspromise Ogerpon EX. Obviously, it's more energy, but it's less prizes, and it's a really interesting card here. It's been, as I said, played not that much. I actually don't know. Okay, so it's been played in essentially, I think Stevens. I complained about this before. That I don't know if these are all Stevens. I'm gonna, I guess, quickly click through here. I imagine most of these are Stevens. They're not going to be Metang decks. Metang decks essentially show up the same as Stevens decks here because they both have Metagross, which I actually will be talking about in this video, but they obviously are different with the Metang from Temporal Forces versus Stevens Metagross EX, which are both Metal Energy Acceleration Pokemon, but Stevens Metagross EX also accelerates Psychic Energy. So the way you do this, actually, if you get 2 Stevens Metagross EX set up, you accelerate, you use X-Boot twice, accelerating 2 Psychic and 2 Metal. Then you attach a Psychic, and then that's going to be 3 energy there. So that actually, the other 2 are going to be Metal, which will allow you to attack theoretically in one turn, and theoretically repeatably. You have Energy Recycler as well to loop that. So that's kind of cool. Ultimately, it's kind of hard to set up, right? Let's be honest. But it is pretty interesting there as a fun little idea. Obviously, there aren't that many people playing this card, but it is a really theoretically powerful card doing an attack that's arguably stronger than Dragapult EX's attack on a basic single prizer, but obviously it's 5 energy, right? So definitely a really fun card. I will also mention there are a total of 4 Deoxys in this set, which is kind of cool, but ultimately none of them are that good. This is the best one, and it's okay. Then we have the next card. This is one of these special energies. I'll say I guess the fire special energy is not very good, or just like really hard to use, and has almost no upside. But the bubble water energy here, as well as the metal one, which is just off this list, it was the 11th most played card. They're okay. Bubble water energy here is and I guess I'll say all these special energies are an energy of a certain type there. Like we got growth grass energy in standard. We have Rocky Fighting Energy, I think is the name, and then Telepathic Psychic Energy. And then we also see a Fire one, a Water one, and a Metal one in this set. And they'll provide that type of energy whenever they're attached to a Pokemon. They don't need to be attached to a Pokemon of that type. So you could attach the special fire energy and the special psychic energy and attack with Dragapult EX that way. However, they all have a second effect, which is, I was going to say, quite good. Some of them are quite good. Some of them are just like not very good, but they only apply if they're attached to a Pokemon of that type. So Bubble Water Energy here recovers the Pokemon from special conditions and stops them from being affected by it. This is something, I guess. I don't know. I mean, like, what special conditions are you going to get hit by? I guess Confusion on Monkey Door is probably the most common one. The reason these cards are seeing play, though, is because they don't have too much downside. Looking at lists, we see it in Mega Starmie decks, where Mega Starmie, Mega Frostlass, with apparently Aurora, it's definitely not what I was expecting, but definitely a cool card as well. I completely forgot this card existed, and yeah, it does not see much play. Wait, what? It's playing Slowking? Anyways, I'm getting distracted, as I tend to do with these videos, looking through weird deck lists. But we just see it as a one of. You can search it with Hilda, and I guess you can search that with me at the X. So theoretically, you have a bunch of. Actually, no, you only have one Ultra Ball, so you don't have that many outs. Also, boxed order, some kind of interesting and kind of weird stuff in this deck list here. But ultimately, you don't really need the energies for anything else. Sure, you can't Night Stretcher, you can't Energy Recycler it, you can't Energy Searcher, Energy Retrieval it. Also, this deck list is like all over the place. But anyways, you're able to have a relatively little downside. If we look at a deck here like Greninja EX, Greninja EX is, of course, it uses water energy here, but it is a fighting type Pokemon, so you won't get the upside, but the downside isn't, too bad. Again, you can't Night Stretcher it back, but outside of that, it's essentially completely fine. And again, it is searchable off a Hilda, so special energies like this are fine, though admittedly, again, with pretty moderate upside. Also, there's a lot of interesting and kind of weird deck lists floating around. I will say, the deck lists that I'm looking at are the City League deck lists. City Leagues are like moderate-sized tournaments in Japan, and they include, I think they're 64-player tournaments. However, Limitless only has the top 16, so most of these decks are, doing decently. They're not necessarily like amazingly or anything like that. So you will see some kind of wacky stuff here. But again, this card can go in like essentially any deck of, that uses water type energy, and the same thing applies to the other special energies. I'll say of the 6 we have so far, the 3 from the set and the 3 in the 3 from Perfect Order, the Telepath Psychic Energy card is by far the best. So that one is like super good. And then the other 5 are all kind of mid. So yeah, but you can, play them with relatively little downside there. Then we have the next card here, which is Philippe. This is a metal card. Actually, the metal special energy is like actually kind of decent, but metal's just not super good and kind of wants basic energies as well. But Philippe here is a supporter that interacts with metal, and this is a reason why you might want basic metal energies, because it attaches up to 2 basic metal energies from your discard to one of your metal Pokemon. So this is a card that only accelerates basic metal energies and only accelerates it to metal Pokemon, unlike the special energies, which are they can work on different types of Pokemon. This has to be metal to metal there, so it wouldn't work with like the Deoxys we saw earlier. This card's ultimately seeing play in some different metal decks. We got it in like a Metang deck here with Heatran. We have it with I don't know how to find the Stevens decks. It's so annoying. I don't know if it's in any Stevens decks really, but we also see it in our Caledon list. Our Caledon hasn't really seen too much play. Post rotation, because, or honestly, it's just kind of mediocre, right? But Caledon does accelerate energies, but just a one-time thing, right? So ultimately, our Caledon can generally get you covered for energies, but it can be, you could be essentially one Arcaladon short at a time if you say accelerate to not Arcaladon using Arcaladon, then your Arcaladon can't attack because it doesn't have the energies on it. So then you could Philippe to Arcaladon or something like that, right? So ultimately gives you some more flexibility. It's not going to be, I don't think, in super high counts here. Like we got this this list with like, Metang again, another one of these where Metang is going to be your main energy acceleration. Same thing with Arcaladon. With this Hops deck here, Philippe's going to be a bit more of a meaningful piece of the deck because you're not accelerating in other ways, but you're also just kind of, doing single energy / no energy stuff with Hop's Choice Band and just kind of going that way. So Philippe is nice. We also see Crispin as well in the deck, so that's kind of covering a similar thing there. Here is a Stevens list because it runs in Polygon, so I can tell that. As I said, the Stevens decks and the regular Metang decks look the same because they both have Metagross and Genesect EX, and so they look the same. When I say Metagross, a Metagross card, there's a new Metagross, which, as I said, we will be talking about. It's not that good. I've been kind of talking about it a lot. It's a mediocre. However, it's played in Metang decks, and Steven's Metagross EX. Different cards, but same Pokemon, so they look the same on Limitless here. Then we got Beedrill EX. Beedrill EX, I've heard a decent amount of talk about. I don't think this deck is super good. And looking at its plays, it's okay, But this card can be really, really fun and splashy. I will also mention this, since it does 100 damage for, or sorry, 110 damage for each of your Beedrill EX and Beedrill in play. There is no single prize Beedrill in standard. So that's a thing, I guess, worth mentioning. But anyways, it does that for one grass, which can be pretty big. Of course, it is grass, so this deck is, I guess, relatively straightforward. Pair it with Arboliva EX as well. If you know my thoughts on Arboliva EX, I don't think it's super good, but I think it fits like fine enough into this deck here. And then, yeah, I mean, you just use Force Vitality and Beedrill EX. We see Dunsparce as well, where we actually see a 4-2 line, which is kind of fun. But ultimately, I mean, it's pretty straightforward, right? It's one energy with the stage 2, but you just kind of, you're not rare candying, you're just force vitalitying, you're using bug catching set and getting a bunch of Pokemon to play. It's a pretty simple, I think, fun deck, and it's kind of, in some sense, maybe this is like a terrible comparison, but it reminds me of Alakazam being this stage 2 energy Pokemon that is just like play a bunch of cards, do your game plan, which is relatively straightforward, but you need to kind of get there and do as much as you can to do as much damage as possible. And I think it's kind of cool. Ultimately, though, the simplest card on this list, but still decent, not amazing, but it's all right. It's seen some play, it's seen some success, so not bad by any means. Then we have the next card here. This is, unsurprisingly, there's going to be a lot of trainers. The set doesn't have a ton of trainers, but a lot of the trainers are seeing play because, they can go into any deck. And AZ's Tranquility certainly is like that. This is a switch supporter, so you switch when you're active with one of your bench Pokemon, and if you move an EX to the bench, you heal 80 from that Pokemon. This is fine. It's seeing play in a variety of different decks, mostly Mega Lucario, apparently. And we see some Mega Greninja, which want switching there. Honestly, not exactly sure why it's in Mega Lucario. If someone knows in the comments, tell me. I guess Ariyama can get stuck. But like you don't heal, and then it's just like a switch. But I don't know. I mean, you're not getting item locked, or if you are getting item locked, it doesn't matter. But it all seems kind of mediocre in this deck. And yes, the healing can be nice, but I feel like you're still going to be in 2-shot range in that situation. Though it definitely is an interesting card there, and maybe can be really nice in certain situations. But ultimately, it's you're going to see this as like a one-of support. You can search it with Meowth EX and hopefully use it when you need it. Wait, why does this deck play 2 Lieutenant Searches Bargain? I don't know. But, this card's okay. It's a fine, mediocre card. Not too much going on, but it's okay. It's not bad, I guess. I don't think it's really, in the long run, going to see that much play, but it's okay. Also, the set, by the way, if you can't tell, is like kind of mediocre, but it's not terrible. I actually recently made a video on talking about how the sets are getting a little smaller, or rather, the international sets are getting closer to the Japanese sets, which are a little smaller there. So that may lead to some of these sets feeling a little disappointing. Then we have the next card here. This is probably the card that, I don't know if it's gotten the most hype, but I feel like based on what people say, it should have gotten the most hype. And it's seeing a bunch of play. It is the 5th most played card in the set. It's Patrat here, which has the ability Watchful Eyes. What it actually says is damage counters on Pokemon cannot be moved to another Pokemon. But essentially what it says is it stops Munkidori. This is both ways as well. So you can't use this, say if you're playing Munkidori Frostlass and your opponent is also playing Munkidori, you kind of want to shut that down. Then you will, but you'll also shut down your own, so that's like bad. But anyways, yeah, this card is seeing play in lots of different decks. And mostly ones with single prize Pokemon, which is admittedly most decks in the game. So we see a shocking amount of Okidogi here. Not honestly what I was expecting. Not exactly. Oh, I guess I'm trying to think through the math. I guess it's like good against Dragapult if they're playing Munkidori there, because then the math could get kind of annoying with that because he got 230 HP. But ultimately, Patrat here is Munkidori counter, right? There is nothing else to say about this card. I mean, there could be if we really wanted to dive into it, but I don't know. I mean, Munkidori is potentially a really good card, potentially really annoying card, and this is a simple counter. I suppose with the Frostlass thing, it will still be picked apart by Frostlass, maybe even Dragapult EX as well, but it's not like super, super bad against those. It's not getting instantly knocked out, so it's a pretty good card. I mean, it is a true counter to a legitimately good card in the game right now. Then we have the next card here. This is the Metagross I've been talking about. This one for 1 metal does 60 and then switches to your opponent out or something. I don't know. This attack you're probably never going to use, or probably not really going to use. But then you have a Metallic Hammer for 4, which does 150. You can discard 3 metal energy from this Pokemon and have the stack do 150 more. So yeah, pretty much, this allows you to do 300 for 4. If you have the metal energies on there, you do need to discard them. If you don't, you just don't discard them and do the 300. So it's a very powerful card here. And yes, the card does 300 damage even if you don't have the metal energies on it. Obviously, in order to attack with this, normally you would need the metal energies on it, right? But I've heard so many comments saying like, no, that's not how it works. Yes, that's how the card works. We've gotten the ruling before, we got the ruling again, and that's how the card works. And it's actually been translated, I think, quite well here. I don't know if this is actually how it's going to be translated, but it says, you have the choice to do more damage and discard the energy. It's not like if you do. I mean, it might say if you do, but what it means is this. You can choose to do more damage, and then if you do more damage, you need to discard the energy. So, it's really it's nice. You can do 300. Obviously, as a stage 2, though, it's not super good, or it's actually kind of bad. However, you compare this with Metang. Metang is pretty good, accelerating energy from the top of your deck. I mean, it's okay. Let's be honest. It's not super good, but it's all right. And then you can power this up, and it's like, a stage 2 you can actually attack with a single pressure to top the line, like, say, an evolution to, like maybe Electros EX or something like that. You can play it, and it's okay. It's not Dragonball EX. It's not the reason you're playing it, but it is still it's pretty nice. It's a nice little option there. But then you can also see this Mega Slower looks like so goofy. Just in the image here. But anyways, you can play it in Slowking here. Slowking, of course, is going to copy Pokemon, and it copies them. It copies non-rulebox Pokemon regardless of their stage or attack costs. And of course, this is a stage 2 requiring 4 energy. If you copy it for a stage 1 requiring 2 energy, then that's really nice. You can just go ahead and do that there, and yeah, pretty much you just do that and are able to seek inspiration for 300, which is pretty good. Right, it's not one-shotting everything. It's actually not as much as you'd like to be doing, but it still is a pretty nice option there. So definitely a card that really elevates Slowking. And I think, I've heard some people talking about Slowking post-rotation, and I definitely wait till Chaos Rising to be able to play this new Metagross, which is a nice little option. Though Slowking, obviously, the deck is questionable, to say the least. Obviously, you need you got Academy at Night being a very important part of your game plan, and it's not a very consistent card. I mean, it doesn't it actively reduces the amount of cards in your hand. It doesn't draw you cards, right? It undraws you cards. So it's kind of clunky, but it can be pretty cool there. Obviously, you got Kyurem as well. We have the next card here. This is a stadium. This is Prism Tower. I guess I will mention there is the other stadium, the Ange Floette or card or whatever. I don't even remember the name of it, but it lets you have your Mega Floette EX have more HP. You can only play it if you play Prism Tower. It's kind of weird, but ultimately it's mostly just weird. It's not very good. But then Prism Tower is pretty decent. Again, this is the 3rd most played card from this set so far, and has the text that says once during your turn, you can discard 2 cards to draw a card. Honestly, this isn't super good, but it is decent, specifically with decks that want to discard. It's actually really interesting seeing what this what this is paired with. There we go. See with Team Rocket stuff, which is interesting because I guess it lets you draw more with Team Rocket's Ariana, and it also lets you, obviously it is a stadium bump as well for any deck, and then it lets you go ahead and discard energies to accelerate them with Team Rocket's Spite Ops there. And then we also see it in Cynthia's letting you draw more, and I guess mostly as a stadium bump. Honestly, it feels kind of weird there. I'm going to take a look at this list to see if there's anything I'm missing. It's mostly a stadium bump. We see 3 stadiums, which all do some interesting and different, though ultimately, I guess Grand Tree's big, but the other ones are kind of mediocre there. And then we also see it with Cinderace, with Delphox. Yeah, sorry, Delphox fans. It's not here because it's not good. But we have Cinderace EX, where this is, I think, a pretty nice stadium. Then we find a not Delphox list. This is running now a whole 2 Prism Towers. But ultimately, yeah, it lets you discard and draw some, which is kind of nice. And we see it in a handful of different decks. It's ultimately kind of mediocre. Right? Its value is fine. We see it in Ethans. We see it And let me see, like a Blitzkin Dragapult, just like a pretty good, decent, normal deck. But yeah, it's definitely a kind of cool card. We see it with like a Calendar discard stuff. So if you need to discard it, can be good. And I guess with Blaziken, you do want to sometimes discard energies, though I feel like a lot of the times you will have the cards in your discard as well. But, it's just a pretty alright card. It's not a crazy powerful card, but it's an okay card. Then we have the second most played card in the set, which is by far the coolest card in the set, which is Greninja EX, which has the ability I cannot speak. The ability Deadly Shuriken. There we go. And it says once on your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active, you can discard a basic water from your hand in order to use this ability and put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. And then Ninja Spinner, which is the name of the set in Japan as well. And so this is the main Pokemon by far. You may return a water energy from this Pokemon to your hand. If you do, you do 80 more damage. This deck has seen a good chunk of play. It's not super good, I'm not going to lie. It's okay. But it is kind of cool. Definitely kind of cool. And you compare it with let me see. You compare it with Greninja EX, the single prizer, or sorry, not the single prizer, the two prizer. And that card I mentioned earlier, it's fighting, so it hits a different weakness, which is cool, and it does some spread stuff. It's just a pretty good card. And you also have Neo Upper Energy, which is the only way to really, or at least the main way, I'm pretty sure, to attack with the Mega Greninja EX in one turn, and you can return the energy, so that works pretty well. And you have Dragapult EX as well. So overall, you can do some cool things with the Mega Greninja EX. It's a decent spread Pokemon. I mean, it does 200 and then 60 Snipe, aka Dragapult, right? So that's pretty nice there. I don't think this card is super broken or anything, but I think it's all right. I think it probably isn't going to be long-term a top 10 deck in the game, but I think it's probably, in that top 20 range, which is fine. It's definitely a legitimate deck, and I think one of the better ones we've seen recently. I'm trying to think of the more recent sets and more recent new decks we've seen. Let me look at perfect order, if that had anything that I'm forgetting. I mean, there's Mega Starmie EX. This is maybe a similar power level to that, but Mega Starmie is pretty heavily reliant on other stuff. I suppose Mega Greninja EX also is with like the single or the two prize Greninja EX. That's also a different typing there, and I don't know. I mean, it's not as reliant as Mega Starmie is on like Frostlass and Munkidori and Mega Frostlass and stuff, but definitely a pretty cool, decent, and fun deck there. Or I guess I'd say it's fun. Ultimately, if you're kind of tired of Dragapult, this being another Dragapult isn't super exciting, but it does some, like, I mean, you can do 60 to the active with the ability. You can do that multiple times. You could, like, take big knockouts, and you can do some powerful spread stuff. You can do a wide variety of different things, which I think is really interesting, but also encouraged to, like, switch and do some different things. So it's pretty cool. Then we have the most played card in the set, though, by far, which is Special Red card. If you didn't know, this card is very good, I guess, and very universal. This is an item here that says you can only use this if your opponent has 3 or fewer prizes remaining. Put shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom, then draws 3. We've seen various hand disruption cards like this. We got the red card in expanded, or I mean, we don't have red card in expanded because it's banned. Same thing with Reset Stamp, which is also banned. We got like Unfair Stamp and cards like that. And long story short, this card it's not an Unfair Stamp, but it's pretty good. I suppose in some ways it could be better if you want to disrupt your opponent without messing with your own hand. The Unfair Stamp's honestly pretty good draw as well, but it's not your ace spec, and it's hand disruption, and it's an item. It's quite good. Obviously only works in the late game. You could pair this with Dust Storm to disrupt your opponent faster. It's been in like a lot of lists I've showed up in the video. I just haven't talked about it because we're talking about it now, but you're going to see this in all sorts of different decks. Not every deck, but it's, I'd say a pseudo staple, a card you're going to see in a lot of different decks and should be, prepared to face pretty commonly and prepared to play with. I do think this card is, now that I played with Meowth EX, I might actually say this card is better than Meowth EX. I'm not sure. I've, not used Meowth EX as much as I was expecting to, but this card is a very solid card, and this being the best card in the set, I mean, it is a legitimately good card, right? So this card's going to see a lot of play. Obviously, being able to disrupt your opponent is kind of hard in Standard, with the supporters not being able to do it so well, and just being kind of mediocre. You look at like Judge, and you look at some of the random ones, then you look at Unfair Stamp being a good card, but a 1 over there, taking up your ace spec. So this paired with Unfair Stamp, not on the same turn, but like in a deck paired with Unfair Stamp, it gives you a much more well-rounded hand disruption package, and ultimately Special Red card is going to see a lot of play in a lot of different decks. I would say in some ways it's another card that kind of helps Dragapult. And also, I didn't mention this, but I think Patrat also helps Dragapult. With Dragapult, I don't know if I'd say struggling against Munkidori, but that being, a bit of a counter there in some ways. Obviously, you can also play Munkidori, but with Special Red card here, this card allows you to go ahead and just Obviously, it works with Dust Storm, which allows you to use it faster. You could theoretically use this, I guess, turn 2. That doesn't seem super good because you're popping a bunch of Dust Storms for probably not very good gain, but it is an option there. And then on top of that, you do also have the fact that Dracloak is a good draw engine, one of the best draw engines after you're being hit by hand disruption, because you don't need the fighting energy for Lunatone, and and Zoroark EX is also going to do a similar thing, probably actually a little better there because you actually draw more. Well, you draw the same amount. Your hand stay size is the same as it would be with Dracloak, but you actually draw more cards. You see the same number of cards, presumably. You could see more than Zoroark EX and Dracloak potentially due to shuffling your deck. And then also, you do lose cards with Zoroark EX. So I don't know exactly where the balance is between those two, but ultimately, obviously, this card is good for Dragapult. If you're expecting big meta shifts, don't. But there's definitely some cards here from the set that are going to change the game a little bit, and I think people will. I think it will make the game a little better. And I mean, I'm enjoying pre-rotation, though. I suppose I'd love to hear your thoughts on pre-rotation. Or sorry, I'm enjoying post-rotation. I also enjoy pre-rotation because I like the Pokemon TCG in general. But I'd love to hear people's thoughts in the comment section on all these new cards. If there's any card that I didn't talk about that you think is super cool and super awesome, because there definitely are some funny cards, like Ferrothorn. That card is super terrible, but it is funny. But also a huge shout out to my YouTube members. I really appreciate everyone supporting me. And also, again, Stage 1 members can have a video every month. But then also, I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure you like and subscribe. That's a free way to support my channel, and it really, really does help. I really appreciate all that support. But I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.